Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the Apocalypse and the co-prophet of the end times. The topic for today's program is World War III, as described in Daniel chapter number 8 and Revelation chapters number 17 and 18. We have already seen the three beasts which come up out of the sea in Daniel chapter number 7. The last of his amazing prophecies was fulfilled in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected President of the United States. He is the leopard which comes up out of the sea. Because his color is both black and white, like a leopard, he has 4 heads and 4 wings because he is the 44th President of the United States, and he was given dominion on January 20th of this year, 2009. Thus all 3 beasts have come up out of the sea, and the stage is now set for World War III. Let's see where the 2 antagonists of World War III are described in Daniel chapter 8 and Revelation chapter 17 and 18. In Daniel, World War III is described as a struggle between a ram and a goat. And in Revelation, World War III is described as between the whore of Babylon and the scarlet beast she rides. In chapter 8, Daniel writes, "And behold, there stood before the river a ram." This ram symbolizes Western civilization, and the river can be translated both as a river, or as a stream, or a canal, or simply as water. And this picture is very similar to what St. John describes in Revelation. "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters." Again, the whore symbolizes Western civilization or capitalism. And notice the phrase, many waters. The angel explains that the waters symbolizes many peoples, nations, and tongues. This certainly describes the location of the whore of Babylon and capitalism. Waters can also be taken literally, and certainly the capitalist nations are generally located on water, and much of their transportation and commerce is conducted across great bodies of water. Now that we know the ram stands before water, Daniel continues in verse number 8, "which had 2 horns, one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last." These 2 horns symbolize England and America. The one that is higher and newer, of course, symbolizes America. The older, smaller horn would be England. The ram is identical to the whore in Revelation. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet. Now this purple symbolizes the royalty of England, and scarlet symbolizes the origin of American government, and that is our own bloody American Revolution. Please do not listen to the false prophets who tell you that the Catholic Church is the whore of Babylon because bishops and cardinals wear purple and scarlet. In apocalyptic literature, purple and scarlet clothing would not symbolize purple and scarlet clothing. They must symbolize something else. And as I said, they symbolize England and America. Now let's look at the power and dominion given to the ram and to the whore of Babylon. 2 more indications that these entities cannot be the Catholic Church or Israel, but can only be Western civilization, particularly England and America. In verse number 4, Daniel writes, "I saw the ram pushing against the west, north, and south, and he did according to his will, and became great." Notice that Western capitalism pushes against the west and north and south, but not against the east. This does not include the communist nations of China, nor most of Russia, since 90% of Russia is east of Jerusalem. And St. John describes a very similar description of the whore Babylon in verse number 18. And the woman you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. Another clear description of how capitalism rules the financial, military, and political empires of the world. Now, continuing in verse number 5, Daniel describes the great antagonist of Western civilization. And behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and had a notable horn. Now this goat comes from the west because communism was born in Germany from Karl Marx, which is west of Jerusalem. Covering the face of the whole earth refers to international communism. And touched not the ground means that its attack against the West will be by stealth and by air power. And of course, the notable horn refers to Russia. Now in St. John we find a very similar description of the beast which the whore of Babylon rides, a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy. This beast is the Soviet Union. The names of blasphemy refers to the atheism of communism, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now this description is a little different than Daniel, because this describes the 7th beast of communism as it will become the 8th beast in Revelation. The 7 heads refer to 7 hills of Rome, and the 10 horns refer to the European Union. That's because the European Union will give its capital to communism. And following World War III, the head of the one world government will move from Moscow to Rome. Here's how Daniel describes communism's sudden attack against capitalism. And he came up to the ram and ran at him in the fury of his power. And St. John's description in Revelation is very similar. Alas, that great city Babylon, for in 1 hour is your judgment come. And now let's look at the motivation of communism. In verse number 7, Daniel writes, the goat was enraged against the ram. Again, St. John describes very similar terms. And the 10 horns you saw on the beast shall hate the whore. Very similar terms. Hatred and being enraged. Daniel and St. John are clearly describing the same event in these 2 passages. And the conclusion of World War III is also identical in both Daniel and St. John. And the goat broke the 2 horns of the ram. The 2 horns of the ram, of course, are England and America. And St. John puts it this way. And he cried, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. These 2 is-fallens refer to the 2 nations that will fall. That is, England and America. In Daniel chapter 7, 3 beasts come up out of the sea. England, Russia, and America. That is, the lion, the bear, and the leopard. These are the 3 beasts which contend with each other in World War III. These are the 3 horns plucked up by the Antichrist. These 3 beasts, these 3 horns, must give way to the final one-world communist tyranny, the 4th beast which comes up out of the sea. And as I always say, God reveals the future, not to scare us, but to prepare us. And if you need more information, simply write to the address you see on your screen.